Hey pals, this is my third attempt to start this video because Albus was in here and he wanted to go in the cupboard, so I opened the door for him so he would stop scratching it and meowing really loudly. But then once he got in the cupboard, he decided he wanted to treat it like an obstacle course, and there was lots of noise, there was lots of boxes falling. I've just banned him from the room and Johnny's trying to keep him entertained whilst I film this video. So this is like Albus's room, so the idea of him being locked out is just devastating to him. So yeah, hopefully I'll manage this video before he tries to get back in. So this is an anticipated releases video for the spring. I did one of these for the first 3 months of the year, and I've been really making my way through those books. Like, I always do these videos, I've done them for a lot of years, and usually with quite poor success rates. Like, when I look back on them, it took me like quite a few years to get to the books. Some of them I never did. This has changed. I'm doing really well. In main part, I've been using my library to request a lot of these books, and yeah, I just picked up another bunch of them that were on hold, and so I'm hoping to sort of do a wrap up once I've read all of those. But yeah, this is my new list. I'm really excited about all these, really great mix, and again, hoping I can get hold of a lot of these from my library. I did have somebody recently ask how I request a book at my library, so like if they don't already have it in stock, how do I ask them to buy it? Now, my library uses a online portal, I don't know, called Spydus, S-P-Y-D-U-S, and on that system, not on the app, but on the actual web page, if you scroll all the way to the bottom, it says request an item, and that's where I ask them to buy me books. You have to tell them like the ISBN, what date the edition you want will be published, and all those sorts of things. But I have had a few librarians comment on my videos, which I always find really interesting when librarians explain more how their system works, saying that if you just go up to the desk in the library and ask them, they will just do it sort of manually for you, so you haven't got to figure out the online system. So that may be something I try in future with some of these, because I think sometimes they're not logged on the system yet, but the librarian is already planning to order them, so I can just like go and ask and not have to do all the request situation. So on to the books. So the first one coming out on the 6th of April is A House for Alice by Diana Evans. I read Ordinary People by this author when it came out quite a few years ago now, and I, in large part, really enjoyed that book. I found it super readable, I found all the characters really compelling. There is a sort of big theme towards the end of the book that didn't work for me as a reader, and I know a lot of people didn't love that element. But yeah, I really wanted to sort of follow her as an author, and I immediately looked into her other books. They all had like really bad reviews on Goodreads, so I haven't picked any of them up. But this new one sounds excellent. So this is about a woman called Alice who has lived in her house in London for 50 years, but she's decided that she would like to go back to the country of her birth in sort of her final years. And her 3 children don't agree with this and are trying to persuade her not to do that, but also trying to figure out difficulties in their own lives. So I think this could be like multiple POV, which I'm pretty sure Ordinary People was, which is something I really enjoyed about it. And so I think you're going to be looking at the mother's life and why she wants to go back to her own country, and then the 3 children's lives and the life they've built in London, and their different reasons for trying to keep their mother with them. So yeah, cannot wait to read a new book by this author. But do let me know if you've read any of her other books other than Ordinary People, and if you think they were worth a read, because yeah, I am really intrigued by this author. The next one, also out on the 6th of April, has a brilliant title and also a brilliant cover, and that is Welcome Me to the Kingdom by Mai Nadone. I love the sound of this. This is a short story collection. I'm always trying to keep an eye out for new release short story collections. I'm going to read you a bit of the blurb because I think that's the easiest way to explain, the themes that a short story collection is focusing on. Welcome Me to the Kingdom is a heady, delicately woven collection of stories full of glitter and grime and surprising sweetness. Mai Nadone explores the fraught relationship between duty and desire, and how this conflict festers in Bangkok's high-end restaurants and school playgrounds as much as its nightclubs and street islands. Yeah, I really like the sound of this. As it says, these stories are all set in Bangkok, I think. I really like short story collections like that are all centred on one place. So I don't know if there's going to be like characters that pop up in a few of the stories, which is something I also like, but we shall see. Definitely really interested to see what this collection's like. Then on the 20th of April, I have a book from an author I'm quite conflicted about. That author is Katrina Ward. Now, I previously read The Last House on Needler Street, which I really enjoyed. I thought was really brilliantly written, really atmospheric, and I was a bit unsure about a sort of central theme in the book that I can't talk about without spoiling it. But I have read Own Voices reviews who think that the author represented that theme, or that topic I should say, really well. But then I read her newer book, Sundial, and felt the complete opposite. I thought it was a real mess of plot and themes, and I thought it dealt quite poorly with trauma and mental illness, and didn't think it said great things about survivors of childhood trauma. So I think this new book, Looking Glass Sound, is in a similar vein. She previously wrote a few other novels that were more sort of straight gothic horror, and in her newer book she seems to be focusing on literary horror that comments on trauma and mental illness, which I think this book also does. Now, I'm going to take a risk and give it a go because, I've had one success and one I really didn't like, but I do like the sound of this. It says, in a windswept cottage overlooking the sea, Wilder Harlow begins the last book he will ever write. It turns out that one of his old friends stole Wilder's unfinished memoir and turned it into a lurid best-selling novel. So Wilder is going to have revenge on his friend by telling this story and sort of revealing something about this person. But as he writes it, he starts to find notes written in green ink, he thinks, by his friend, who I think is now deceased. So he's unsure of he's haunting him. And it says, and who is the dark-haired woman drowning in the cove whom no one else can see? No longer able to trust his own eyes, Wilder feels his grip on reality slipping, and he begins to fear that this will not only be his last book, but the last thing he ever does. So yeah, undecided. I'm definitely going to give it a go. Going to get it from the library. We shall see. I would like to know if this is one you're also looking forward to. Also on the 20th of April, we have Rosewater by Liv Little, and this is a really buzzy debut novel. The author lives in South London and she's of Jamaican and Guyanese descent, as is the protagonist of this novel, Elsie. She's 28 and it says she's really sexy and fierce and independent, but she's also feeling really tired. And we follow her through her life. She writes poetry sort of in secret, I think, and she works at her local gay bar. And I think this novel is going to be kind of like Sally Rooney, in that you're following her trying to build this life that she wants to live while suffering with anxiety and panic attacks, and trying to build relationships, both romantic and platonic, with the people around her, and sort of struggling to do that. The blurb says that this is compulsively readable, and quite a few of the authors quoted on it say they read it in 24 hours. So yeah, I'm really intrigued by this one and can't wait to pick it up. And then finally on the 20th, we have Change Everything, Racial Capitalism and the Case for Abolition by Ruth Wilson Gilmore. So this is part of a series being published. I actually have one of the other books, and they're called the Abolitionist Papers. I have We Do This Till We Free Us, which I really want to read as soon as possible, so I definitely want to collect all 4 books. But this is the newest one coming out, and I hadn't heard of Ruth Wilson Gilmore until I think last year, and I'm super intrigued by her work now, so I'm going to pick this up as a place to start. But she's also published books, I think back in the 90s and stuff. So what I find intriguing about her is she's a professor of earth and environmental sciences, but she combines commentary on race, gender and environmental justice, class war, militarism, interpersonal violence, old age security. So yeah, I think all those intersecting themes are things I'm really interested in. I find it particularly interesting when people talk about environmental justice linked to all those other topics. And she's written for years about the prison system. I think a book that was quite famous that she wrote was Golden Gulag, which I've been unable to get hold of in a physical copy. I have found on audio, but I think it's going to be too detailed to listen to, so that is still one I'm trying to get hold of. But yeah, just really want to read her work. Super happy to see she's got a new book coming out. We'll definitely be pre-ordering this one. And then the last book of April, this comes out on the 27th, is The North Shore by Ben Tufnell. I really love this cover. This book is set in Norfolk, where I live. I always love hearing about books that are set in Norfolk, where I live, or Suffolk, where I was from, because we don't often get books set in these locations. This isn't giving much away in the blurb, but it says it's for fans of Fiona Mosley, Daisy Johnson and Max Porter, so I think it's going to have a lot of sort of lyrical writing, nature writing and themes of folklore and fairy tale. It says, as eerie, bleak and magical as the Norfolk coast itself, an intriguing narrative of twists and turns, stories and myth, truth and fable. Tufnell has captured and distilled the very nature of nostalgia, transforming it into a gripping piece of work that pulls you in and won't let you go. So yeah, can't wait for this one. I feel like it might be a bit plotless and more focused on theme and writing style, but that's something I'm really into. And I think this is a debut novel as well. And on the 2nd of May, we have You Are Here by Karen Lynn Greenberg. Karen Lynn Greenberg is an author of Chinese American descent. I think this is her first book, I love the sound of this. This is a short story collection, but they're all interlinked, and they're so interlinked because they're all set in a shopping mall in an upstate New York town that is about to close down. And so you have stories told from the perspectives of people who either work in the stores that are now closing down or people who used to frequent the stores. It sounds absolutely brilliant. I am so excited to read this one. I love the sound of the stories in this. An example is it says, the only hairstylist that Sunshine clips secretly watches YouTube primers on how to draw and paint, just as her awkward young son covertly studies new illusions for his magic act. His friend, a magician's assistant, a high school cashier in the food court, has attracted the unwanted attention of a strange boy at school. She tells no one except the mall's chain store bookshop manager, a failed academic living in the tiny house he built in his mother-in-law's backyard. So I think each story leads to another character and then you get their story and it goes on from there. I really love the sound of that and can't wait to pick it up. Then on the 4th of May, we have A History of Burning by Janika Ozer. I really like the time and place this book is set in. So it opens in 1898 and we follow a 13-year-old boy who's fleeing India. The boat takes him to labour for the British on the East African Railway. He meets a young woman there and it says he walks into her father's shop and together they set out for a new life in Uganda. So then you follow their families and you follow them through the reign of Idi Amin and then also as they then move to London and to Canada. I previously read a couple of novels set in Uganda during the reign of Idi Amin, both from the perspective of the native Ugandans and also the Asian Ugandans who fled from India. I find it a really interesting time period, a really great examination can be had of how people can be divided by class and race and how that is beneficial to the government. And yeah, I just really like books like this that look at different character perspectives in different locations and time periods. So this is one I think I'll really enjoy. Then on the 11th of May, we have This Family by Kate Sawyer. Now, the title and the cover are quite generic, but when I saw this when I was looking for a new release, I was like, I'll have a look what it's about. And I really like the sound of this. This is the sort of book that might not be doing anything really new, but I always love family dramas, in particular ones where you get perspectives from like different members of the family. This is about a woman who has raised her family in this one house and now after all these years of living there, she wants to call all of her children back because she wants to get married in the house. The family are now like really fractured. There's lots of like secrets and like ruptures between them all. And it says, set over the course of an English summer's day, but punctuated with memories from the past 40 years of love and loss, hope and joy, heartbreak and grief, this is the story of a family. Told by a chorus of voices, it is an exploration of the small moments that bring us to where we are, the changes that are brought about by time, and what, despite everything, stays the same. So I think this is just going to be a really compelling read, lots of juicy secrets and family drama, which I love. And yeah, very intrigued by this one. On the 18th, we have a book with a much more interesting title, and that is Ghost Girl Banana by Wiz Wharton. This book, yeah, has a fantastic cover. This is a debut novel. This one's around 400 pages, so I think this is going to be like a sort of, juicy, more epic family drama. This is also set in two time periods, and I think from the perspective of a mother in one time period and the daughter in another, so obviously I want to read this one. So you get the mother's perspective in 1966. She is exiled from Kowloon and moves to London with orders to restore honour to the family. And she really struggles with that. And then you move to 1997 where her daughter Lily can barely remember her mother who she lost as a child, but she's like randomly named in the will of a powerful Chinese stranger. So she goes on this pilgrimage to Hong Kong to try and find out her like real identity and her mother's history and claim the reward. But it says she soon learns that the secrecy around her heritage has deep roots and good fortune comes at a price. So yeah, can't wait. It says that you get swept up into Suk-yin and Lily's mirrored journeys of discovery spanning decades and continents, but always you can feel the vibration of these women existing in the wider world. So yeah, that sounds great. And then on the 18th, we have a new release from Emma Cline. Now, I'm definitely going to give this one a go, but I'm going to preface this with saying I have mixed reactions to her previous books. Her most well-known book is The Girls, which came out quite a few years ago now. I remember speeding through that book, I think probably in one day. And I found the past narrative, the sort of coming of age of this young girl who gets involved with the Manson family cult, really intriguing and I just got really swept up in that narrative. But I thought the narrative in the present day was just like an epic fail, should have just not been there. And yeah, it was one of those books that I really enjoyed, but I don't think was anything like spectacular in terms of writing. Then I tried her short story collection, which from memory is called Daddy, I think, and realised that she's very good at what she does, but that just doesn't work for me, in that the stories were all quite sort of cold and distant and had this element of sort of trying to unsettle or like disgust the reader, which is just something I'm not into. I think this novel could be going down that road, but I'm still always intrigued by her books because I found the girls so readable. So I'm going to give this one a go, but there is a large chance I will get like 50 pages in and realise that just tonally this book isn't for me, but it does sound intriguing. It says you're following this young woman who is dating a much older man, and they are on Long Island, and something goes wrong at a dinner party. He dismisses her and like gives her a ticket back to the city, but he says with few resources but a gift for navigating the desires of others, she stays on the island. She drifts like a ghost through the gated driveways and sun-blasted dunes of a rarefied world, trailing destruction in her wake. Taut, sensual and impossible to look away from, the guest captures the latent heat and potential danger of a summer that could go either way for a young woman teetering on the edge. So yeah, this book is being described as savage with an undercurrent of unease. So there's a high chance, like I said, this won't work for me, but I'm still very intrigued. And then on the 25th of May, we have The Happy Couple by Nisha Dolan. A lot of people previously read Exciting Times, which was her debut novel, which I found super readable. I'm really excited to read this one. I'm sure it's going to have the same really interesting commentary on like sexual entanglements and romantic relationships, and how power and class and wealth can have this sort of undercurrent in all those relationships. This book is again doing something I love, and I've realised so many of the books I've put on this list have multiple POVs, so hope you like that too, because most of the books here are that. So in this book you follow the happy couple. They're going to get married in a year's time, and it says they're in mutual unrequited love with one another, which sounds interesting. The best man is in love with the groom. The bridesmaid, who is the wife's sister, is trying to figure out where the groom like keeps disappearing to. She's trying to like uncover his secret. And then you're following one of the guests who, with the benefit of some emotional distance, methodically observes her friends like ants. It says, as the wedding approaches and these 5 lives intersect, each character will find themselves looking for a path to their happily ever after. But does it lie at the end of an aisle? So yeah, I think there's going to be lots of entanglements in this, lots of drama, and I'm very much looking forward to like keeping a weekend free and just like speeding through this one. And then on the 1st of June we have When We Were Sisters by Fatima Asghar. This follows 3 Muslim American sisters who lose their parents at quite a young age, and you watch them as they sort of try to raise one another and try to move on from the grief and build their lives. It says When We Were Sisters tenderly examines the bonds and fractures of sisterhood, names the perils of being 3 Muslim American girls alone against the world, and ultimately illustrates how those who've lost everything might still make homes in each other. I love coming of age stories, especially about young girls, and this sounds like it's basically doing that for 3 sisters. So yeah, 3 for the price of 1 basically. So I'm very much looking forward to this one. And then finally, I don't think I need to say much about this one at all because this is going to be a massive release. I'm sure a lot of you will be picking this one up. It comes out on the 6th of June, and that is Page Boy by Elliot Page. I love this title. I think it's such a great play on words. Also love the cover. Just cannot wait to read this one. Do I read any celebrity memoirs? There's quite a few I've intended to read because I've heard people like rave about them, and not even about celebrities I'm particularly interested in, but just I've heard that they write their memoir really well. But I have been a fan of Elliot Page for years. I love the videos of Elliot and his wife dancing. They're like amazing. I will try and link one down below in case you haven't seen them. And yeah, just really intrigued to read his story, and I think it will be a really interesting discussion of what it would be like to transition so publicly, and how like the type of people in Hollywood would react to that. I can't imagine it is very well handled in places like that. Obviously, it isn't very well dealt with in most parts of the world, but in this sort of culture of like excess and I guess like extreme femininity and gender roles, I think it will be a really interesting discussion. And yeah, I just have really liked following Elliot's career, and so I'm intrigued to read more about it. So that is the final book. Let me know if you think there are any books I've missed that I would like the sound of. Also, let me know about any books you're excited about. If there's any on this list that are like top of your list or any you hadn't heard of but you want to read now. I'd love to know all that information. Thanks for watching and I will see you in the next video. Bye.